guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, hello, welcome. I'm Sherrilyn. I am so glad you found me. Why do I get red right here like the second I start talking? It drives me crazy. Anyways, if you are not new here, hi, welcome back, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me on our True Crime Wine Wednesday. Your guys' love and support and being here every week really does mean everything to me. All right, I'm a little nervous. As you can see, I'm not wearing makeup right now. And as per requests from a few of you, I'm going to do something special, something I'm nervous to do, but I want to make you happy. So here we go. And I'm going to hope for the best. A few of you have asked me to do a makeup look, Halloween geared, while I tell a story this week. And I was kind of on the fence because it doesn't happen often. I'm so lucky with the people that find their way to my page and my channel, and everybody that supports me is just so wonderful. But I mean, as it grows, you're just bound to attract people who have an opinion, want to spread some negativity. So I have had a couple people come for me and say that I'm a Bailey Sarian ripoff. And I mean, in the one sense, I'm like, well, I mean, thank you for even like categorizing me with Bailey. She is just on another planet. But another part of me is like, well, it kind of hurts because I work so freaking hard. I don't want to be called a ripoff. I can 100% understand if I was going on Bailey's channel, writing her script, trying to play it off as my own. But there is so much that goes on behind the scenes. There's so much time that takes away from my family so that I can provide content that is to my standards and to your standards and just provide something that I'm really happy with. And I was really surprised when that hate came towards me because it was actually over a thumbnail that looked similar because the font in it had been yellow and red like Bailey. And I was like, oh my God, are we doing this over a thumbnail? Hell no. I do expect it from my previous true crime videos where I was doing makeup prior, but as I kind of found my groove and my niche here with my, you know, kind of like a hang chill session, just hanging out with you guys, talking as if we're going over the story together, sitting down, just chilling. Like that is the vibe that I love. And so when people come back and tell me that that's one of the main things they love about my channel, I love that because that's the vibe I'm going for. So I know it's inevitable to be compared to somebody, especially when you're in the same genre. So when I was asked to do Halloween makeup while doing it, it made me really nervous, but you know what? I'm going to do it. I am pulling inspo from not only Bailey Sarian today to do my makeup and talk about today's story, but also to my girl Mykie over at Glam and Gore. She is so phenomenal at, well, doing glam and also gore. So brilliant. So I'm just kind of melding the two together. So I'm not going to use too much special effects blood, but there'll be a little bit today. So if you're not into it, you might not be into this one. I apologize. I had these gloves that I want to wear like the whole time and I don't think I can. You know what? I can wear one on one side. I apologize for my chair too, you guys. I have to switch up the chair to be in my makeup chair. Usually I sit in my nice like cozy chair while we chat about these cases, but today I'm doing my makeup, so I need my other chair and it's really squeaky. Just know when you hear like it's not a bodily function, it's the chair. Okay, like ooh, red leather gloves. Who is she? Leather? Who knows? All right, let's do this, you guys. So today we are talking about the haunted history of the Cecil Hotel, and I am going to be transforming myself into the Countess, who is probably one of my favorite characters from American Horror Story. And if you didn't know, that season was loosely based off of all of the tragedies that have happened at the Cecil. So when you're watching and processing things like that, there's that element of just knowing that you're watching a TV show. However, there has been at least 16 different murders, suicides, paranormal events, and unexplained disappearances that have happened at the hotel. This place was once a temporary home to 2 serial killers. And in recent years, it was the final destination for a Canadian student who was traveling through California. So let's go back to where it began. The Cecil is located at 640 in Main Street in LA. It was built in 1924 by a gentleman named William Hanner. I've read that it has 600 rooms, but when it was advertised in the 1920s, it advertised 700 rooms. So I don't know if like 100 of those are just like closed now, or if somewhere along the way that number was miscoded. I don't know. But when it was first open, it was advertised as like a business class traveler and tourist hotel. It cost $1 million to build. So, I mean, in those days, that's a lot of money. It definitely wasn't built to attract serial killers and murderers. It was quite luxurious. It had a really glitzy marbled lobby with like stained glass windows, very like Zsa when you walked in it. But unfortunately, even with the intentions in mind to attract a certain clientele, the hotel was built 5 years before the Great Depression, and when it hit, the status of the hotel just completely declined. The area around the hotel became known as Skid Row. From that point forward, everything took a shift. Skid Row was known in the area to attract individuals who were suffering in life, either from addiction or mental illness. There were prostitutes who would frequent the area. So it definitely became a spot where anybody who was wealthy and coming to town on business wasn't wanting to stay at because they didn't want to walk out the front door to brawls that were happening on the street or drug use. So the hotel lowered the rates to stay afloat and naturally just attracted people who would find themselves on Skid Row but wanting a place to stay, shower, sleep that wasn't on the streets. And it was attracting people who were going through hardships in life as well. In 1929, a 31-year-old woman named Dorothy started wandering the halls of the Cecil. I guess she was just kind of in a state of limbo and being lost. And she just wandered and wandered for like 3 days. On one of the days, she had a full breakdown. Allegedly, her husband had died very unexpectedly not long before this, and she was so distraught over it she didn't know what to do, and ultimately he decided that she wanted to be with him. So she had tried to commit suicide by poisoning herself with capsules in the lobby, but she fortunately was found in time and brought to a hospital where they were able to save her. Sadly, this seems to be a catalyst for the hotel for a string of suicides to happen, and everyone else isn't as fortunate to be found and have a second chance. In 1931, a gentleman named W.K. Norton, who was from Manhattan Beach, had checked into the hotel on Saturday, November 14th. He checked in under an alias, James Willis, and a few days later he was found in his hotel room by his maid with capsules in his vest pocket that contained poison. Police were able to identify him finally by some checks that he had in his suitcase, and they had the name of his wife on them. I tried to find a little bit more about W.K. Norton, but all that I came up with was almost like an army slip with that name on it, but I wasn't able to confirm that it was him and that he did serve in the army prior. So I can't say for sure. I don't know what had led him to the hotel that day. And the fact that he used an alias seems a little bit suspicious, but I found that it's something a lot of people did, specifically when they were checking into this hotel. So I don't know if it was because they had plans on not returning and didn't want to be found, but he wasn't the only one who did that. The following year, there was another gentleman who had shot himself in the hotel. And the year after that, a freak accident took place where there was a pedestrian who was outside of the hotel, and he was struck by a truck that was driving erratically outside, and he was actually pinned to the Cecil Hotel where he died. A couple years pass, and there doesn't seem to be any more incidents. And then in 1934, a former army sergeant checks into the Cecil Hotel. Woo, that's a lot of powder. We gotta make ourselves look a little ghostly, though. Fully didn't intend on that much, though. 53-year-old Louis Borden was apparently dealing with some health issues, and he had decided he just wanted to put an end to it himself. He wrote a few farewell notes. He had written a letter to designate any remaining money and possessions he had to a woman named Edna. And then after that, he slit his throat with a razor blade. 3 years after Luz's suicide, Grace Margot, who was a 25-year-old woman, was found on the ground outside of the hotel, but it's never been determined if she fell from her room or she jumped. When she was found, she was tangled in like telephone wires and cords that were on the poles outside of the building, so it appeared that she was grasping for something as she was falling. So it gives you the impression that, I mean, she could have intended to originally take her life, and then maybe as she jumped, she had completely regretted the decision and wanted to like hold on to something and save herself. And she actually wasn't alone in the room when she fell or jumped. There was a man with her named M.W. Madison. He was a 26-year-old sailor, but he had said that he was asleep at the time of this alleged fall/jump, but he could think of no reason why she would want to jump. That one gets me, and that's kind of what's frustrating about doing some of these older cases. You can't find too much information on the people or what happened after the fact. From what I could tell though, the gentleman that was in the room wasn't a suspect, so they didn't think that he had pushed her or anything like that. It sounds like if anything besides a suicide was to blame, it was that she could have just been kneeling over and slipped and fell, but not that anyone else was responsible. Less than a year after Grace's death, Roy Thompson, who was part of the Marine Corps, jumped off of the roof of the Cecil Hotel, and he was found on the skylight of the neighboring hotel. Rumors naturally started happening that like even if you had checked into the hotel but you weren't physically there at that time, you still weren't safe. There were several incidences where there were hotel guests checked in the hotel but out on walks or in a park nearby, and something tragic happened to them too. There was one female guest who was found drowned in the ocean. Another guest had gone out to answer an ad in the paper, and she instead was beaten and robbed by this person who like lured her out. Another man had left the hotel and then committed suicide in the park nearby. And then there is probably one of the most notorious potential visitors of the hotel. This has never been actually proved, but allegedly Elizabeth Short, who was also known as the Black Dahlia, had visited the hotel a few days before her murder and was seen at the hotel lobby bar. She never checked in, but there's bartenders and wait staff that remember seeing her at the bar. And if you don't know who Elizabeth Short is, she is also known as the Black Dahlia. She was found naked in a park and her body was in two. I think what's also most remembered by her is that she was cut from corner of her mouth to ear on both sides, giving her what they called the Glasgow smile. That is a case all on its own that I would love to do. If that's something you guys would want to see, let me know. The next incident to happen in the hotel happened in September 1944. A 19-year-old named Dorothy Purcell woke up in the middle of the night to severe stomach pains. She was staying with a guy named Ben Levine at the hotel, and he was sleeping when she woke up. So she didn't want to wake him up because she was like tossing to and fro and trying to like rock her way through the pain. So she decides to get up and go to the bathroom to make sure she doesn't disturb him. And all of a sudden she gives birth to a baby boy, which shocks her because she didn't even realize she was pregnant. I guess when she holds the baby, she feels like there's something wrong. She thinks that she's given birth to a stillborn. And being 19 years old and in shock because you don't even know that you were pregnant to begin with, she panics and she doesn't know what to do. So sadly, didn't make the greatest decision in that situation. She decides to throw her baby out the window onto the roof of the hotel next door. And sadly, her baby, he wasn't dead at the time, but having thrown him, she was the one who ultimately killed him. She was arrested and charged with the murder of her newborn baby, but at the trial, the charges were dropped and she instead was sent to a psychiatric hospital by reasons of insanity. I mean, I realize there's things that probably happen at hotels that we don't hear about, but when you like lay out all of these types of tragedies, these aren't just small incidences that you kind of want to brush under the rug to make sure that you still have like a decent reputation. Like, these are all really tragic and all happening at the same spot. You can't help but be like, that's not the good brush. You can't help but feel like, okay, well, what the shit is going on at this hotel? And this isn't it. Remember, like, we are just 20 years into this place being open. Next, there was the death of a woman named Helen Gurney. She was a 55-year-old woman, and she was an employee at a stationery firm in San Diego. She ended up registering into the hotel under the name Margaret Brown of Denver. So she was another one who went under a false name. And it looks like she stayed at the hotel for about a week. She checked into room 704, but never checked out because by the end of the week, she had jumped from the window of her bedroom and she had actually landed on the marquee of the hotel. So she was in plain view of everybody that was walking by on the busy street. I guess like hundreds of people were in absolute horror because they were just like standing there not knowing what to do and then watching police try to take her down. There allegedly was somebody who had like a complete breakdown over being traumatized over seeing this. Luckily, nobody was injured in that case, being as it was like right above the sidewalk. But unfortunately, in the case of a woman named Pauline Auten, there was an individual who wasn't so lucky. Pauline had checked into the hotel to discuss some marital problems that she was having with her estranged husband. It sounds like Pauline was wanting her marriage to work out and it was on the brink of ending. I'm assuming the conversation didn't go as Pauline had hoped because when her husband left the room to go for dinner, she jumped from the 9th floor window and she actually struck a pedestrian that was on the street below, killing him as well. At first, I guess the police thought that they knew each other and this man had also jumped with Pauline, but they pieced together that his shoes were still on and he also had his hands in his pocket at the time, so they figured he wouldn't just like nonchalantly step out of a window and fall without like bracing himself at some point. I think it's just like human instinct. And then they also figured that the impact of him hitting the ground would have made his shoes fall off. Only months after Pauline's suicide, another woman named Julia Moore jumped from the 8th floor and landed on the 2nd floor railing. So eventually the Cecil became known as the suicide. And I mean, even though that probably made it harder to attract business and kind of dismiss bad publicity, I mean, given the circumstances, it's kind of what was happening at the hotel. Eventually, not only suicides would plague this place, though. In 1964, there was a retired telephone operator named Pigeon Goldie Osgood who was staying at the Cecil. I guess she was a long-term resident of the hotel. You could stay on like longer rentals at this place if you wanted to. And so Pigeon had, and she was very well known around the hotel. Everybody really liked her. She got her nickname Pigeon because she liked to go to like a nearby station and feed all of the pigeons that were there. Tragically, she was found in her room brutally murdered. She was raped and beaten and then stabbed. And her room was completely ripped apart. So it looked like somebody was obviously hoping to get something out of the killing. When she was found, I found it was so sad because she was found next to a little bag of like bird feed that she would always take to feed the birds. There was a man named Jacques that was eventually charged in her murder because he had been seen around the area in like blood-soaked clothing, but he was eventually cleared and not tied to the case at all. It also sounds like, I mean, on a regular street, we would probably be like, why do you have blood all over your clothes? But these were like blood stains, and I feel like just some of the residents in the area didn't have like abundance of clothes to change into, so who knows, he could have gotten in a fight earlier on, could have found the clothes. I mean, we really don't know, so I don't think that had like anything too major to do with it. And he was cleared, and to this day, her death is unsolved. I think one of the most notorious, I hate using the term notorious in cases like this, but I mean, I guess like they're notorious, like they're very notarized, well known. But to me, sometimes I feel like the term is when it's given to somebody who's like evil, like you shouldn't be well known. Anyways, I mean, he is one of the most well known supposed guests of the hotel was Richard Ramirez. And if you don't know who he is the serial killer who was also named the Night Stalker. Where's my setting spray? Where's my setting spray? And he was horrible. He is the one who would break into people's houses in the middle of the night and kill them. Literally your nightmare. He had apparently been known to hang around that Skid Row area of the hotel. So although there's no like paperwork that ties him to the hotel, I'm sure he wasn't on like the up and up with his like check-in anyways. It doesn't sound like it's completely out of the realm of possibility that he would have found himself there. That's better. There was a hotel clerk that used to live on the 14th floor of the hotel, and he said that Richard also stayed on the same floor as him, and he had like a brief conversation with him about where he grew up. Rumors are that after he would kill somebody, he would go and throw his clothes in the dumpster behind the hotel, and then he would just walk back and through the hotel in his underwear or even naked sometimes, which I mean you'd think would raise eyebrows, but again, given the area and some of like the odd characters and things and situations that the hotel attract, I guess it just wasn't even something that raised an eyebrow to anybody. Richard eventually was caught and convicted. He was convicted of 13 murders, and he died in prison from complications to a few diseases, but he was on death row at that point for like 23 years or something like that, which is just madness because I mean, this guy, he was so creepy. And I think one of the things that really was terrifying about him was the fact that he had no remorse. Like, he's the one who went to jail with like Hail Satan on the palm of his hand, or like, no, he said Hail Satan and he had like a pentagram on his hand. It's pentagram, right? Somebody calls me out on this because I think I said Pentagon last time, and that's like a building, right? Sorry. I'm getting better, you guys. But yeah, like there was no question. He was not somebody who was like, I'm not proud of what I did. He just strolled in there like, yep, it was me. Again, we aren't 100% sure. There's no trail that leads back to him paper-wise, but it was rumored enough that it attracted the attention of another serial killer to go and stay there to pay like homage to him. This was a serial killer from Austria. His name was, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so sorry, I'm going to mispronounce it. Jacques Unterweger. Let's see if we can get somebody to pronounce it for us. Unterweger. I was close. He had actually already been convicted of murder in 1974. In Austria, where he was from, but everyone who had tried to rehabilitate and like observed him felt like he had been rehabilitated. So they actually released him from prison, and he had only been out for a year when he made his way to the Cecil. I have not heard about this guy. I'm going to have to read up on him because there's a few elements just that I touched and researched that I was like, what in the heck is going on here? But his MO was to target prostitutes, and he would kill them by strangling them with their own bras. But what's really creepy is that when he got to LA, he was actually hired to do a story in a magazine about crimes in the city and how different the US and European countries viewed prostitution. So while he's in America, 3 prostitutes are killed, and they are killed the same way as the first victim that he was already released for killing. He wasn't found until a year later though, and at that point he had made it to Miami. He didn't stay in the States. He was actually extradited back to Austria, and they were able to tie him to another 7 other murders in Austria. So finally in 2007, the owner decides that it's time to reinvent the Cecil. They want to turn it into like a trendy boutique style hotel, and they want to rename it the Stay on Main. I guess with a certain city law, the requirements to do any upgrade were that they still had to keep an area of the hotel to reserve half of its units for low-income tenants. So as much as they were wanting to do a complete facelift and I'm assuming attract the crowd that the original owner had intended all of those years ago when they opened up the Cecil, given just the area of town and the individuals that had grown to rely on the hotel, they couldn't completely take away this like temporary home that they had been used to. So they did a facelift and they had, which side? I think it's this side. And they had the one side that they had like revamped, advertised as the hippest boutique hotel and hostel in downtown LA. And then the other side, it remained the same. I guess the boutique side had its own separate entrance, but when you got like past like the lobby into the hotel, the other part of the hotel and the new part shared an elevator. I mean, with the renovations and the way they advertised online, you could see how it would definitely attract travelers, anybody who was wanting to stay in a hostel. They did have that option to have a shared room there as well on that new side. And they had things like Xbox and Netflix and all that type of stuff that you could tell like young travelers would be enticed to stay there. They had revamped the side in the front of the hotel to the new name, Stay on Main. But surprisingly, in efforts to obviously want to rebrand and stuff like that, they had left the original signs on the side of the building. So it was still the Cecil, but then right in front of the building, it had the new signage. Very confusing. And not the best way to like shed the past reputation that you're trying to separate from. I wasn't going to wear lashes because it doesn't look like she's wearing any in the picture I'm referencing, but I'm going a little rogue here because I feel like I need to. Sadly, even with the new renovations and the revamp of the hotel, it didn't stop tragedy from finding the Cecil. In 2013, tragedy struck again when a Canadian student named Alyssa Lam was found drowned in one of the water tanks on the roof of the hotel. I plan on doing a whole case on Alyssa. I want to share her story and there's a lot to cover, but a brief version just for anybody who's not familiar with Alyssa. She was the young woman who went missing inside of the hotel, and police had released a surveillance video of her in the elevator of the hotel, and it attracted a lot of views, a lot of theories, and loads of suspicion. There are so many theories out there about what happened to Alyssa. Everything from of the paranormal realm where she had seen a ghost or she was trying to get to another dimension. There's the theory that she was suffering from a manic episode. Some people feel like it looked like she was running away from somebody that she was afraid of. And then there's a lot that believe that somebody that worked for the hotel was involved. Regardless of the theories in this case, it was closed because police believed that she had gone up to the roof of the hotel by herself, crawled into this large water tank, and accidentally drowned. And they believe that it was a direct result of her bipolar disorder. Like I said, there is so much to go through on that case, so it will be something that we will visit in the next few weeks. Sadly, Alyssa's case wasn't the last incident at the Cecil. There was one more suicide there in 2015 where a young man that was staying there had again taken his own life. And I feel so conflicted about why this hotel stayed open for so long. There's the side of me that when I read this and then I see all of the darkness there, you're like, you gotta level it, take it out. But I can also understand in a different aspect that this was one of the only places that was affordable for people who were really struggling in life. They're dealing with addiction, homelessness, and somewhere like this is an option where they can go in and have a sleep off of the streets, have a shower, and just briefly feel like they have more dignity than they probably do on the streets. So I guess there's just that part where it's like, okay, yeah, you do hear a lot, but there's days and years that go by where it's still providing a roof over a lot of people's heads who need it. Apparently the hotel is closed now, but it sounds like it's undergoing like $100 million renovation, and the goal is to turn it into like micro apartments or like rental suites where people are going to use it for like business or things like that. And they're charging like $1,500 a month. So in that case, I'm like, okay, well now you've completely wiped out the option for people who can't afford something like that. And that was the whole reason why this place has stayed afloat for so long. So if these individuals can't benefit or utilize it at this point, then level. There is something that is just not wanting to have people stay here, or it is to bring them in to the darkness. And we gotta eliminate it. I want to know your guys' thoughts though. I want to know if you guys, like if this place was still open, could you still stay there? I've seen a lot of people who are like paranormal hunters or true crime writers who have gone to the location, but like once they toured through, they were like, we cannot stay here. And I mean, they'll stay in other places, but this one specifically, they were like, oh heck no. So I want to know if you would do it. I don't think I could. I'm always so intrigued to hear about like when people have stayed at spooky places and if anything happened. I'd really love to go to Salem because I know like a lot of stuff happens there. So hopefully when we're allowed to travel again, I can have it on the list. It was something that I actually wanted to do this year for a whole Halloween series. And unfortunately that didn't happen, but there's always next year, guys. So fingers crossed. Taped on nails. Okay, you guys, that's it for me today. Thank you again to Mykie and to Miss Bailey Sarian for, as always, the amazing inspiration. Thank you guys for suggesting that I do this style of video today. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys liked it. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It means the world to me. I love and I appreciate you so much. I may see you on Saturday. I may not this week. We will see. I will miss you terribly regardless until the next time. So make sure to love each other, love yourself, and I will see you soon.